Here are the top stories for today, August 22, 2019. President Duterte says he would bring up the Philippines' arbitral win when he meets Chinese President Xi Jinping next week.
So, whether you like it or not, will it make you happy or not, angry or otherwise, I'm sorry. But we have to talk the arbitral ruling.
Malacanang is leaving to Congress the explanation of the anticipated release of convicted rapist and murder former Calauan Mayor Antonio Sanchez. An official of the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict chides communist rebels and legal fronts for twisting history for their ideological needs. And Task Force Bangon Marawi's member agencies have opened an information caravan to bring government services to the city's displaced residents.
Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Our top story for today, President Rodrigo Duterte says he would bring up the Philippines' arbitral win when he meets Chinese President Xi Jinping next week. Speaking at the inauguration of a solar power project in Romblon, President Duterte said he would insist on the arbitral tribunal favoring the Philippines, whether President Xi Jinping likes it or not. He said he would also discuss with Xi the 60-40 sharing in the proposed joint oil and gas exploration in the West Philippine Sea, as well as the June 9 Recto Bank maritime incident where a Chinese vessel allegedly rammed and abandoned a Philippine fishing boat at sea.
Pero sabihin ko sa kanila na you've always been saying we do not have to go to war, we do not have to go to trouble, and let us resolve this controversy peacefully. If I told you that before my term ends, I would have to talk to the Chinese about this. So whether you like it or not, will it make you happy or not, angry or otherwise, I'm sorry. But we have to talk the arbitral ruling, then what we get. If there is a start in the exploration and in the extraction of whatever wealth there is in the bowels of the earth, the proposal of 60-40 in our favor would be a good start. I hope that it would graduate into something like towards how do we solve the arbitral ruling peacefully.
On July 12, 2016, the Philippines won its arbitration case filed against China in 2013, nullifying China's 9-line claims of nearly the entire West Philippine Sea, including part of the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. According to the Arbitral Tribunal, Beijing violated its commitment under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea when it built artificial islands within Philippine exclusive economic zone. But China earlier said it would not recognize the ruling and instead ramped up its militarization efforts in the vital waterway. Amid the recent move by PAGCOR to suspend POGO applications in the country, China asked the Philippines to go further and ban all forms of online gambling. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Geng Shuang on Tuesday said that while China appreciated PAGCOR's decision, they are hoping that the Philippines will ban all online gambling as well. The Chinese official says Beijing viewed online gambling as the most dangerous tumor in modern society, detested by people all across the world. Meanwhile, Malacanang says it will leave it up to President Rodrigo Duterte whether he would heed China's suggestion or not. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo earlier said Duterte is backing PAGCOR's decision to stop accepting POGO licenses until all concerns have been addressed, although POGO still remain as a legitimate revenue-making project in the country. PAGCOR decided to stop accepting new applications for POGO after lawmakers warned that the proliferation of online gaming operations could have security and labor repercussions. President Rodrigo Duterte was invited by non-resident ambassador of the Republic of Malawi to the Philippines to visit the African country. Malawi's ambassador to the Philippines, Greninger Kidney Sulira Banda conveyed the invitation when President Duterte welcomed new ambassadors from Switzerland, Germany, Malaysia, Georgia, Estonia, and Malawi in a ceremony in Malacañang Palace on Tuesday afternoon. During the ambassadors' presentation of credentials, Duterte expressed hope that the Philippines would forge stronger bilateral relations with those countries. The African envoy said that Malawi's head of state, Peter Mutharika, is personally inviting President Duterte should there be any opportunities either in Malawi or in the Philippines. An election watchdog on Wednesday supported the Commission on Elections' adoption of stricter rules in the accreditation of groups or organizations for the party list polls. According to Contra Dava convener Danilo Arau, stricter accreditation is very important at a time when the rich and powerful are bastardizing the system. He said that such stricter methods would be most welcome if COMELEC will target the rich and powerful and not the marginalized and underrepresented. COMELEC Commissioner Rowena Guanzon earlier said she will be pushing for stricter rules before a party list group is allowed to run for Congress in future polls. This after the poll body's first decision rejected the nomination of Ronald Cardema as the representative of the Duterte Youth Party list for being overaged. Guanzon said she is also looking to introduce additional requirements, particularly rules on the use of names of popular politicians as names of the party list groups. More Baguio-bound buses are now using PITX, and Nutriban is being revived in public schools in Marikina. More on this from Benji Bondo.
More buses going to Baguio City are now available for commuters at the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange or PITX. DOTR Undersecretary for Road Transport and Infrastructure Mark Richmond de Leon said there are now 33 Baguio-bound buses using the terminal. The point-to-point buses have free Wi-Fi, charging port, reclining chair, free water, in-bus entertainment system, and comfort room. Meanwhile, PNP Chief General Oscar Albayalde is also urging the Civil Service Commission to come up with a guideline on policies on how much is the acceptable gifts or tokens that may be received by a public servant. This after PACC Chairman Greco Belgica said that 100,000 pesos is an insignificant gift as it is equivalent to his monthly pay. Albayalde said that while he respects Belgica's remarks, 100,000 pesos for him is a hefty amount to be given. And for those who missed Nutriban during their school days, Marikina City revives the concept for kinder and grade 1 pupils. Around 21,000 pupils in public schools are fed with Nutriban made of malunggay, squash, eggs, and flour. It also comes with milk. The city government of Marikina revived the Nutriban program as part of its effort to combat malnutrition. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Benj Bondo.
Still to come, Malacañang says Congress should explain how convicted rapist and murderer Antonio Sanchez is getting off with an early release. And Department of Agriculture has ordered the culling of all hogs within a 1-kilometer radius of farms in Bulacan and Rizal that were infected by swine disease. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Ulat sa ginagawa ng Presidente. August 5, Lunes, Malacañang. Pinanumpa ni Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte ang mga bagong talagang opisyal mula sa iba't ibang ahensya ng gobyerno.
Our people have long suffered from the scourge of corruption and red tape in the bureaucracy. As you assume respective offices, I expect you to help me in the task of regaining our people's trust in government by pursuing necessary bureaucratic reforms that will enable us to address the needs to those we serve.
Nanumpa rin ang bagong talagang Supreme Court Associate Justice na si dating Court of Appeals Justice Rodil Zalameda. Pinanumpa rin niya ang mga bagong cabinet secretaries na sina Acting Secretary William Dar para sa Department of Agriculture at Acting Secretary Wendell Avisado para naman sa Department of Budget and Management. Nakipag-meet and greet sa Pangulo ang Miss Philippines Earth 2019 Reigning Queens sa kanilang pagbisita sa Malacanang. Kinagabihan ay pinangunahan ng Pangulo ang 40th Cabinet Meeting sa Aguinaldo State Dining Room. August 6, Martes, Malacanang. Pinanumpa ni Pangulong Duterte ang mga bagong talagang opisyal ng League of Provinces of the Philippines, League of Cities of the Philippines at Liga ng mga Barangay. Pinanumpa rin niya ang mga newly elected officers ng Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chambers of Commerce and Industry at ginawara ng Order of Lacandula ang presidente nito na si Dr. Henry Bonyong. Nag-farewell call sa Pangulo si outgoing Denmark Ambassador Jan Top Christensen. Ginawaran siya ng Order of Sikatuna Rank of Datu. August 7, Miyerkules, Haro, Iloilo. Nakiramay ang Pangulo sa pamilya ng mga nasawi sa Iloilo Guimaras tragedy noong August 3, 2019. 3 bangka ang lumubog sa dagat na sakop ng Iloilo Guimaras Strait dulot ng masamang lagay ng panahon. August 8, Huwebes, Malacanang. Pinanumpa ni Pangulong Duterte ang mga na-promote na star rank officers ng Philippine National Police.
To the newly promoted generals, I urge you to uphold the highest ethical standards in your profession, even as you strive to remain firm in controlling order and the rule of law, preventing and controlling, again, crimes and the order of our nation.
August 9, Biyernes, Camp Crame. Panauhing pandangal ang Commander-in-Chief sa selebrasyon ng 118th Police Service Anniversary.
I call upon you to keep your integrity intact as you uphold the highest ethical and professional standards in public service.
Ako po si Secretary Martin Andanar at ito ang Duterte on Duty. Abangan sa susunod na linggo ang mga gagawin ng Pangulo.
Malacanang says Congress should explain how convicted rapist and murderer former Mayor Antonio Sanchez is getting off with an early release due to a law that retroactively reduced his sentence. More on this from Rom Dulfo.
Malacanang is leaving to Congress the explanation of the anticipated release of convicted rapist and murderer former Calauan Mayor Antonio Sanchez, which was made possible by Republic Act 10592. Presidential spokesperson Panelo said Congress should be able to address concerns about the revised penal code. He, however, said any attempt to appeal Sanchez's release in 2 months will not prosper if the law deems him qualified for a reduced sentence. For its part, the Department of Justice confirms inmates may be released early due to more liberal rules in computing good conduct time allowance. Justice Chief Bernardo Guevara clarified that the computation of time allowance is ministerial and implemented according to who went to Bilibid first. Republic Act 10592 was signed in 2013 by former President Noynoy Aquino. The law reduces by 15 days per month the jail sentence of an inmate who exhibits good behavior. Sanchez was convicted for the 1993 rape slay of UP Los Baños student Eileen Sarmenta and the killing of her boyfriend Alan Gomez. He was also meted a double life sentence for a different case, making his sentence a total of 360 years of imprisonment. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Rom Dulfo.
The Department of Agriculture has ordered the culling of all hogs within a 1-kilometer radius of farms in Bulacan and Rizal that were infected by African swine fever. DA spokesperson Noel Reyes said the Bureau of Animal Industry and the DA regional field offices were implementing surveillance, quarantine, and culling in managing, containing, and controlling the suspected disease. The DA also prohibited swill feeding on the feeding of food scraps, a practice that has caused disease outbreaks overseas. 3 barangays in Rodriguez, Rizal have been placed under quarantine because of the possible presence of suspected major economic swine diseases. Meanwhile, Pangasinan Governor Armando Espino III on Tuesday ordered a temporary ban on the entry of pigs in Pangasinan to ensure that the province would not be affected by African swine fever. Provincial government offices and national agencies were made to act amid the reported presence of the disease in Bulacan and Rizal. Officials assure Pangasinan has more than enough supply of pigs and there are no cases of suspected ASF yet, while pork from the backyard hog raisers in the province are safe to consume. The Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines has encouraged its partners to push for the creation of inventions that will benefit more Filipinos. IPOPhil Director General Josephine Santiago noted that the country still needs to do more in the field of innovation, not for the sake of rankings, but for the improvement of lives of our countrymen. She said the Innovation and Technology Support Offices have the capacity to foster creation of intellectual property in the academe and research sectors. Science Secretary Fortunato de la Peña said his department has invested heavily not only by providing funds for research and programs, but also in developing, protecting, and commercializing technologies. IPOPhil Deputy Director General Teodoro Pascua cited as examples pharmaceuticals that come from indigenous plants such as sambong and lagundi, which have been invented through the University of the Philippines. The Provincial Health Office of Aurora is urging residents to follow the 4S strategy against dengue. This as cases of the mosquito-borne illness reach a total of 1,234 from January to August 13 this year. The latest figure is 179% higher from the same period last year. 8 deaths due to dengue were also reported this year as against 1 in 2018. The 4S strategy means to search and destroy mosquito breeding sites, secure self-protection, seek early consultation, and support a misting and spraying to prevent an impending outbreak. Meanwhile, the local government of Iligan City declared a state of calamity following the alarming increase of dengue cases in the city. Local dengue cases have so far reached 1,138, with 14 deaths from January 1st to August 17 this year. The local government will purchase protective gear, fogging machines, medicine, Olisset nets, and chemicals necessary to combat dengue. In Quezon City, parts of Barangay West Fairview underwent anti-dengue cleanup operations this morning. The Barangay Health Center at Barangay Hall also received Olisset nets and insect repellent for spraying activities. West Fairview is one of 10 barangays that the city government is monitoring due to high incidence of dengue. Quezon City reported 3,502 dengue cases, including 29 deaths from January to August 10 this year. Baguio City opens its doors for fruit sold fresh from Mindanao. Meanwhile, the National Museum inspects Malacanang sa Sugbo pending its conversion into a regional museum. More on these and other news from the provinces from Janice Cabe.
Baguio City is selling fresh fruits from Mindanao starting this weekend at Session Road when it is closed to vehicles on Sunday. Former Agriculture Secretary Emmanuel Piñol is sending truckloads of fresh fruits from Mindanao which will be sold at cheaper prices. The Mindanao Development Authority will lead a fruit festival in Baguio City on August 24 to 25, featuring products of Mindanaoan farmers. Meanwhile, representatives of the National Museum of the Philippines conducted an ocular inspection of Malacanang sa Sugbo on Wednesday. This as Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez expressed his support to convert the Malacanang sa Sugbo into a regional museum. The National Museum wanted to re-establish its presence in Cebu City through the restoration and conversion of the historic former Customs House of Cebu into the Central Visayas Regional Museum. In Zamboanga City, the local government has tapped the assistance of over 400 police trainees in the enforcement of local ordinances, especially in clearing sidewalks of obstructions. Mayor Maria Isabel Climaco Salazar vowed to comply with President Duterte's directive to reclaim public roads being used for private purposes, as well as the strict enforcement of all local laws and ordinances. Police trainees were also oriented on local traffic laws, ordinance on vagrancy and prostitution, sanitary and anti-littering ordinance, ordinance against sniffing of rugby, anti-mendicancy ordinance, and anti-smoking ordinance. In Iloilo, a board member proposed an ordinance setting aside the first day of the month of June as a special day for the members of the LGBTQ community. Carol V. Espinosa Diaz of the 5th District said the proposed Pride Day recognizes LGBTQ members as active partners towards community development. The Pride Day is a positive stance against discrimination and violence towards LGBTQ people and will promote their self-affirmation, dignity, and equal rights. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
Up next, an official of the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict chided communist rebels and legal fronts for twisting history for their ideological needs. And Task Force Bangon Marawi's member agencies have opened an information caravan bringing government services to the city's displaced residents. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
WFEX is the World Food Expo. It's actually a gathering of food suppliers, mga chefs. We identified it as a very good venue for us to showcase our project, which is the food tourism and mountain development. We have a project, a collaboration project with the United Nations Mountain Partnership Secretariat. Itong project kasi na ito, it is more of identifying food products in mountain areas. So itong mga food products na ito will be subjected to a voluntary labeling scheme. Lalagyan ng label ng UN Mountain Partnership ito as products of the mountains that qualified in the philosophy ng slow food, which is good food, clean food, and fair food. So pag sinabi mong good food, quality, and flavorsome, flavorful. And then pag sinabi mong fair food, the price of the product is fair in a way that the producers of the product are able to really get benefit. It is fair dahil parehong kumikita. Kumita yung farmers, kung saan na-produce yung food, kung sino yung nag-produce ng food, then kumita rin yung marketeer. Yung isa ay clean food because the way the product was produced is in a manner na hindi siya abusive sa environment. These products will have to be carried in the tourism travel experience. So this is a concrete example of what we call inclusive growth and sustainable tourism development. Parang looking at the products na hindi lang the travel, but the products that tourists will consume. But meron din yung mga products na hindi siya labeled pero it's considered arc of taste. These are products na parang endangered, parang kailangan ng attention kasi hindi na masyadong propagate, and they are important plants, or they are important products for the preservation of the environment and culture.
As the country celebrated Ninoy Aquino Day on August 21st, an official of the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict chided communist rebels and legal fronts for twisting history for their ideological needs. Major General Antonio Parlade made this remark in response to claims made by Kabataan Party List Representative Sara Elago that they are studying history and injustices being perpetrated in the country. Parlade cited the Plaza Miranda bombing on August 21, 1971, which was perpetrated by suspected communist rebels and then blamed on the government. He also noted the Jabida massacre, the killing of Moros by army troops in 1968, which the late Senator Ninoy Aquino disproved as a hoax. Parlade said Aquino highlighted these incidents to give the public an understanding of the propaganda used by the CPP-NPA in recruiting and sending minors to their deaths. The ranking military official also dared the militant lawmaker and her allies to give the youth the chance to join either the armed communist rebels, their militant partners, or the Reserve Officers Training Corps. The Libyan government has asked the Philippines to consider the deployment of more nurses and other Filipino workers to the Mediterranean state. The request was made by Libyan Health Minister Ahmed Mohamed Omar, who met with Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. in Manila on Tuesday. The Department of Foreign Affairs said Wednesday that Locsin promised to look into the request. Alert Level 4 is in place on Libya's capital Tripoli and its nearby areas, effectively banning deployment as well as the return of at least 1,000 Filipino workers. During their meeting, Locsin and Omar also discussed concerns over the delay and non-payment of salaries of more than 1,000 Filipino nurses and hospital workers in Libya. A focal person has been designated to work closely with the embassy in resolving monetary claims of Filipino hospital workers. The National Capital Region Police Office and the Ayala Foundation has honored 2 police officers on Tuesday for their exemplary deeds of heroism. Patrolman Jonathan Stanley Berdon Dionisio of the Manila Police District and Corporal Jeffrey Maniclang Javier of the Southern Police District were the latest recipients of the Police Magiting Award. Dionisio chased a snatcher and helped a distressed citizen in Lagusnilad, Manila, while Javier helped rescue a man who tried to take his life at the rooftop of a building in Parañaque. NCRPO Chief Guillermo Eliazar commended the goodness of police personnel not only as professional servants but more importantly as human beings. The Police Magiting Award aims to recognize and provide modest rewards to policemen performing good deeds not only as public servants but more importantly as compassionate and gallant persons. In our foreign news, U.S. President Donald Trump says his administration is seriously considering an executive order to end birthright citizenship. The president has opposed the legal acquisition of U.S. citizenship by immigrants born on U.S. soil. Trump promised ending the birthright citizenship during his 2016 presidential campaign and once revived the idea last year. Earlier Wednesday, Acting Homeland Security Secretary Kevin McClellan unveiled new policies which allows the government to detain families crossing the U.S.-Mexico border longer than before. The U.S. federal government has sought various ways to curb illegal and legal immigration since Trump was sworn in January 2017. In continued efforts to rehabilitate Marawi City, Task Force Bangon Marawi's member agencies have opened Information Caravan, bringing government services to the city's displaced residents. More on this from Sweet Lukman.
The different member agencies of Task Force Bangon Marawi converged at Boganga Lakeview Shelter to provide information on their various programs and at the same time brought their services to the internally displaced persons. Dubbed Kumpas Barangay Information and Serbisyo Caravan, led by TFBM's Information Management and Strategic Communication Support Group of the Presidential Communications Operations Office and the Philippine Information Agency. The caravan aims to assist the Maranao communities in the recovery and rehabilitation process by facilitating an exchange of information among IDPs and by providing them with the needed services from the different TFBM member agencies. Speaking to the IDPs, TFBM Chair and Housing and Urban Development Coordinating Council Secretary Eduardo Del Rosario emphasized that the TFBM would continue to provide services to the IDPs and to make Marawi a prosperous city again.
Nakita natin na 2 years had already passed since the siege and still all the government agencies involved in providing services are still here. It shows na hindi kayo iiwanan ng national and local government units.
The Philippine Army through its 12 Civil Military Operations Battalion provided free haircut to the IDPs while the 551st Engineering Battalion gave them clothings. For its part, the Department of Social Welfare and Development distributed hygiene kits, malongs, drinking kits, and food packs to the 613 displaced families, while the Lanao del Sur Provincial Social Welfare and Development Office also conducted feeding program to the 1,000 displaced children. The Department of Health, Marawi City Health Office, and Lanao del Sur Provincial Health Office also provided free medical and dental services to the IDPs. Free haircut services, manicure, pedicure, massage were also provided to the IDPs by the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority. 75 sari-sari store starter kits were distributed by the Department of Trade and Industry to qualified beneficiaries. Meanwhile, the Department of Information and Communications Technology conducted an information drive on digital literacy, digital parenting, and cybersecurity. An information booth was set up by the National Housing Authority to cater to IDPs who would like to inquire about its permanent shelter and the Katagong Balay, which deals with the procedures and processes when applying for repair or construction of structures inside the most affected area. The Office of the Building Official also discussed the importance of the application for building permit prior to the repair or construction of structures in MAA. Moreover, the City Police Office urged the IDPs to avoid illegal drugs and illegal gambling, saying the police had already apprehended 3 persons from the Boganga transitory shelters for illegal drugs. Finally, the Office of the Civil Defense discussed the requirements for the financial assistance to be given to the relatives of Marawi siege casualties. For PNA Newsroom, Sweet Lukman, Philippine Information Agency.
Tropical storm Ineng has slightly intensified as it moved west-northwestward. Batanes, Cagayan, including Babuyan Group of Islands, Isabela, Aurora, and Quezon will experience moderate to occasionally heavy rains tomorrow due to Ineng. Meanwhile, light to moderate with intermittent heavy rains due to the southwest monsoon will prevail over Metro Manila and the rest of northern and central Luzon, Cavite, Batangas, northern Palawan, including Calamian and Cuyo Islands, Antique, and Aklan. Ineng remains less likely to make landfall in the country. Sea travel is risky over the eastern seaboards of southern Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao due to potentially rough sea conditions. Here's the weather outlook for the rest of the country. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories.
President Duterte says he would bring up the Philippines' arbitral win when he meets Chinese President Xi Jinping next week.
So, whether you like it or not, will it make you happy or not, angry or otherwise, I'm sorry. But we have to talk the arbitral ruling.
Malacanang is leaving to Congress the explanation of the anticipated release of convicted rapist and murder former Calauan Mayor Antonio Sanchez. An official of the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict chides communist rebels and legal fronts for twisting history for their ideological needs. And Task Force Bangon Marawi's member agencies have opened an information caravan to bring government services to the city's displaced residents.
Thank you for watching another edition of the PNA Newsroom. To check out these and other stories, visit the PNA website or follow the Philippine News Agency on Facebook and Twitter. For more stories about the government and how it serves the Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. And that's your daily dose of the latest news and information that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day.